Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to see the Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's class from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 6, text 13 through 15. We're fortunate this morning to have His Grace Balabhadra Bhattacharya Prabhu, ISKCON Atlanta, to give a class. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept
Hare
our humble
Krishna.
obeisances. All
I
glory
accept
to
my
you,
obeisances, all
Prabhupada.
glories to Prabhupada for you. One thing is
Sorry.
that Vishnu Gada told me that he started chapter 5 and read the introduction, and that I should start with text 1. But I can do the text that you have. It's just that's what he communicated to me.
Okay, so chapter 5, text 1.
Yeah, because the last class he gave, you read the introduction part.
No problem. We'll do
Is
chapter
that
1.
okay?
Yeah, it is. I'll just do it right here.
Yeah, chapter 5, text 1.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read a few verses, so it's okay.
Chapter 5, so this is chapter 6. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Chapter 5 and
Text 1.
yeah. Okay, 3. Text 1. All right, so we got it now.
Thank you, bro.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda.
Yeah.
So, beginning with text 1, chapter 5. I think what I'll do is have devotees repeat this text 1, then I'll read a couple more verses.
Okay.
Okay. Vande Nanta Bhutaishwaryam Shri Nityanandam Ishwaram Yatsye Chaya Tatswarupam Agenapi Nirupyate Vande Nanta Bhutaishwaryam Shri Nityanandam Ishwaram Yaschaya Tat Swarupam Agenapi Nirupyate Vande Nantam Bhutaishwaryam Shri Nityanandam Ishwaram Yaschaya Tat Swarupam Agenapi Nirupyate. Next.
Vande Nitta Bhutaishwaryam Srinitanandamishwaram Yasyechchaya Tatsurupam Agyenapi Nirupyate.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. But the Gita cannot be on audio today, so I'll just go ahead. Vande Nata Bhutaishwaram Sri Nityanandam Ishwaram Shri Chaya Tatswarupam Ageyapi Nirupyate. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else?
Vane Natayas Araparayam Sri Vitayaram Israyam Yasyeka ya Tatsarapam I Yenapi Mir Yupyate.
Mahibo.
Hare
That's Jackie. She just started attending our classes in Atlanta, and she loves the Sanskrit and the verses. So she's trying to learn how to pronounce them. So thank you, Jackie. You did very well. Very good. Anyone else? Word for word. One day, let me offer my obeisances. Ananta, unlimited, Abhuta, and wonderful Aishwaryam, whose opulence Sri Nityanandam, unto Lord Nityananda, Ishwaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yasya, whose, Ichaya, by the will, Tatsvarupam, his identity, Agena, by the ignorant, Api, even Nirupyate, can be ascertained. Translation. Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. Next text. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 3. E Sat Sloke Kahila Krishna Chaitanya Mahima Pancha Sloke Kahi Nityananda Tattva Simha. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. Now in 5 verses, I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. Text number 4. Sarvavatari Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Tanhara Dvitiya Deha Shri Balaram. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. Purport: Lord Shri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval Lord and the original form of Godhead. And his first expansion is Sri Balaram, the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead can expand himself in innumerable forms. The forms that have unlimited potency are called Swam Sha. And forms that have limited potencies, the living entities, are called Vibhinam Sha. Text 5. Eka Iswarupa Donhe Bina Matrakai Ajakaya Vyuha Krishna Lilada Sahaya. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. Report. Balaram is a Swamsha expansion of the Lord, and therefore there is no difference in potency between Krishna and Balaram. The only difference is in their bodily structure. As the first expansion of Godhead, Balaram is the chief deity among the first quadruple forms, and he is the foremost assistant of Sri Krishna in his transcendental activities. Text number 6. Say Krishna Navadvipe Sri Chaitanya Chandra, say Balaram Sange Sri Nityananda. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. Text number 7. Sankarshana Karana Toyashayi Garbo Dashayi Chapayo Dishayi Seshascha Yashamsha Kala Sanitya Nandakya Rama Saranam Mamastu. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshana, and the Vishnus who lie in the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. Purport. Sri Swarup Damodar goes to offer his respectful obeisances to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. This verse also appears as the 7th of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Text 8. Sri Balaram Goshani Mula Sankashana Pancharupa Dari Karena Krishnera Seva. Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshana. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. Text number 9. Apane Karena Krishna Lila Sahai Shristi Lila Karya Kare Dari Charikai. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. And this will be the last verse that we read. Shishyadika Seva Tanra Agarapalan Shesha Rupe Kare Krishnera Vidvida Seva. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation and in the form of Lord Shesha. He serves Krishna in various ways. Purport. According to expert opinion, Balaram, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarshan. Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms. Number 1, Maha Sankarshan. 2, Karana Di Shayi. 3, Garbo Daka Shayi. 4, Shiro Daka Shayi. And 5, Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balaram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta, or unlimited, because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Sri Balaram is the servitor Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balaram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. Om Jnanatimirandasha Janan Janan Salakaya. Chaksu Militam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swan Rupa Kadad Mayam Kadate Swabanante Kam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So beginning with the first verse, a very important point is mentioned. Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Nityananda, or Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. So that statement, by his will, even a fool can understand his identity, is very important for all of us in our efforts to try and understand Krishna consciousness. For the most part, it is beyond our understanding. As much as we may try, we can have an intellectual understanding of it from the beginning of our practice and practically throughout our practice. Understanding Krishna is not very easy. We can say we know him or we understand him, but it ultimately is beyond our capacity. So here, by his will, even fools like ourselves, we can understand. By his will only. The difficulty, at least for me, the moment I begin to speak, I forget the fact that it's Krishna giving me the abilities to say anything, either Krishna consciously or even mundane conversations. All these things are by the grace of Krishna. Sarvasya chaham, Ridishani visto, mata, smritir, gyanam, pohanam cha. Our ability to remember, what happens when we forget, all comes from Krishna. But as we begin to engage in our daily activities, again, at least for me, we tend to forget that this is all happening by the grace of the Lord. So the devotee constantly puts himself in that position of being a fool, fool number 1, that without the mercy of the Lord, there's nothing possible for me. So that's the beginning. And as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verses 8 through 12, and he gives the principles of knowledge, he begins with humility as the first principle of knowledge. So when we approach Krishna consciousness, it has to be a constant reinforcement of the principle of humility. Otherwise, we begin to think that this is my understanding, this is me, this is coming from me. Or others may think that is coming from you. But ultimately, the philosophy, the knowledge is coming from Krishna. He's in our heart. He's in everyone's heart. So whatever we can remember or whatever we forget is by his arrangement. So the devotee who is full of humility as a constant meditation. That is a form of samadhi, remembering that it's only by the grace of the Lord that I'm able to breathe, what to speak of speaking, what to speak of articulating this very complex philosophy of Krishna consciousness. It is simple for the simple-hearted, but it's difficult for those who might be, as mentioned, wicked, or try to speculate on this philosophy. That's also mentioned in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1, verse 1, in the purport, where Srila Prabhupada says that one should study Bhagavad Gita with the help of scrutinizingly with the help of a devotee of Krishna, without any personally motivated interpretations. It is very easy to speculate or try to interpret what's being stated in verses like this one. But if we stay attached close to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, meaning understanding as Prabhupada has given us, then we can be protected. So it begins with this mood of, I am fool number one. I have no understanding. I have no ability to understand. It's only by Krishna's arrangement that I'm able to understand anything of this philosophy. One thought that I had earlier as I was thinking about this class is that Krishna, again, is beyond our ability to understand. And then when we try to understand, we filter it through our physical existence. So that brings to mind a class that Srila Prabhupada gave on Sunday in our daily classes here. And he was speaking with one Indian gentleman and trying to explain this point to him. So this little exchange is very important. It'll help us appreciate. This man says to Prabhupada, he is everywhere. He is omnipresent. And then Prabhupada says, yes, he is present within your heart, but still he has got his own place. And then the man says, this is why he says he has been, and then it's indistinct. Prabhupada says, yes. The Indian man says, but it can also mean that he is not everywhere because, again, indistinct. And then Prabhupada says, why not? It's a very, very nice exchange. Why not? That is God. That is God. You're thinking in your terms. Because when you are at your home, you are not everywhere. You think God is like that. That is your deficiency. Why do you compare yourself with God? That is your deficiency. And then the man says, this is a philosophical point of view. Prabhupada says, not philosophical point of view. You're thinking God in your own terms. Because you are imperfect. When you sit in your home, you cannot be present at my home. Therefore, you are thinking God is like that. And the man says, when you say he descends, does it mean, again, indistinct? Prabhupada says, yes, he descends. It does not mean that he is absent in his abode. That is God. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Anantarupam, Brahma Samhita 533. You understand this? Anantarupam? He can expand himself in unlimited forms. Otherwise, why it is possible, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshe Arjuna Tishtati, Bhagavad Gita 1861. God is situated in everyone's heart. Everyone means within your heart, within my heart, within cat's heart, within dog's heart, everyone's heart. So there are innumerable living entities. How he is situated everywhere. Adantarasta. Paramanu Chayantadastam, Brahma Samhita 535. He is within this universe, and he is within the atom. That is God. So this expansion of the Lord, here we're describing about Lord Balaram being the first expansion of the Lord. So generally when we think in terms of expansion, we think something began. It expanded from something. But in reality, there is no beginning to Lord Balaram. It's not that Lord Balaram began and then another expansion began. It eternally expanded. So when we try to understand that, through our own experience, it is practically impossible. Because as Prabhupada said to this man, you're sitting in your home, but you're not sitting in my home. But Krishna's in the spiritual world simultaneously. He's here. Here where? Everyone's heart. How many hearts are there? And even within the atom. And then Prabhupada says, of which in 1 cubic inch is millions and millions of atoms. And he's in every atom. How are we supposed to understand that? Therefore, humility, that by the grace of the Lord, I can even think of these things. So for us, this thinking, it's part of Shravana, hearing. So we can hear the glories of the Lord, very nicely hear the glories of the Lord. Like this Chaitanya Charitamrita, as we're doing now, reading some verses and hearing these wonderful glories. And we try to appreciate them, appreciating them. And if Krishna is merciful, he will reveal some glimpse of an understanding. As I said earlier, I was just thinking how unlimited the Lord is and how small I am. And what is it that I can comprehend? Only by the grace of the Lord. If we can remember that and accentuate that or punctuate that with loving devotional service. Te sam satatayuktanam Bhajitam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupiyantite. By this loving devotional service, dadami buddhi yogam, the Lord gives us the understanding by which we can come to him. That is our ultimate goal, to come back to the lotus feet of Krishna. Even though he's incomprehensible, and it's almost, how can we imagine going back to Godhead after being in this world, being at least in this body for this lifetime, and being so distracted by material life, whatever it might mean to any one of us? How is it we can conceive of going back to Godhead? Well, we have to try to understand what that means and what is that place, the spiritual world, how amazing it is. I know Vishnu Prabhu read from the introduction, but I was trying to understand the Maha Sankarshan, and that's mentioned in the introduction. So I'm just going to read a small part of that. The personality of Godhead known as Sri Balaram in Krishna Lok is the original Sankarshan, attracting deity. And from this Sankarshan expands another Sankarshan. So again, keep in mind, this expansion is not saying that something began. It's like the sun and the sunshine. Wherever there's sunshine, you know the sun is there. Wherever the sun is there, there'll be sunshine. It's simultaneous. So, and from this Sankarshan expands another Sankarshana called Maha Sankarsana, who resides in one of the Vaikuntha planets. By his internal potency, Maha Sankarshan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky. Wow. And the spiritual sky is 3 times bigger than whatever we can conceive of in this material world, which is unlimitedly expanding and unbelievably huge. We're only in one universe. Srila Prabhupada says that this universe is measured 4 billion miles in diameter. And then beyond this, there are other universes, and bigger, more expansive. And then this material world is only 1/4 of the creative manifestation of the Lord. And the other 3/4 are in the spiritual world. And here it's saying that Mahasankarshan maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky. So when we hear something like that, we should be, again, humbled by such an amazing description, and not try to or begin to think that I know this. As they say in the mundane world, some things are above your pay grade. I'm sure you've all heard that phrase many times. You get to a point, and then a discussion might ensue, and then a person will say, well, that's beyond my pay grade. So in Krishna consciousness, it becomes like that. But by the grace of the Lord, we can appreciate by hearing the glories of the Lord. And by hearing his glories, he, within our hearts, when he sees that we've developed the affinity to hear his messages, which were in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted, he cleanses all the dust from our hearts. It's like the dust on the mirror. Sometimes when you're taking your shower, the mirror becomes all foggy from the steam. So then you clean it away and you can see clearly. So what is that cleansing? I was discussing this the other day with Jackie, who's new on our class here, that Premanjana Charita Bhakti Balochanena. And she caught that point about the ointment of love of God, the salve of love of God, cleansing our heart, cleansing our vision. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Baba Mahada Vagni Navapana. That is our real business, to cleanse our hearts by the process of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. And then by Krishna's grace, we can understand. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, one beautiful verse, verse 54, I'm sure many of you know this verse. Bhaktya Tonanyaya Sakya Aham Evam Vidorjuna Gyatum Drastum Chatatvena Praveshtum Cha Parantapa. My dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So keep in mind that Arjuna is on the chariot with Krishna. This is universal form. Prior to this, Arjuna did not see or understand Krishna as he really is. He saw him as his friend and brother-in-law, so many relationships. So it took up to this point. Of course, Krishna begins to reveal himself earlier, but here he shows Arjuna this universal form. And then he's telling him, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita by the speculative process will know they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once changed himself into a two-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understanding of these matters, even by study of the Vedas. I know devotees sometimes are fascinated with reading various different literatures, Vedic literatures and all that. But will that give us access to the understanding when Srila Prabhupada is saying here? It's very difficult. No one can see him or enter into understanding the understanding of these matters, only by undivided devotional service. The devotional service, ahaitukya pratiyata, yatma suprasidati. Devotional service should be unmotivated, uninterrupted, no motivation. And we're not looking to get something from Krishna consciousness, or even to so-called enjoy. I hear devotees use the phrase a lot of times. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, or really enjoyed that. Okay, fine. Yes. Taking prasadam is transcendently enjoyable. Hearing a lecture is transcendently enjoyable. But the goal is to satisfy Krishna, not to so-called enjoy ourselves. As Prabhupada says, if you water the root of the tree, the entire tree becomes satisfied. So if we satisfy Krishna, then everything else comes in order and comes in time. But the real purpose is to please Krishna. So hearing is for pleasing Krishna. It's devotional service. It's not so-called for our pleasure. Again, it is pleasurable. It is satisfying to hear the glories of the Lord, or to even speak the glories of the Lord. But the real point is to please Krishna. If we can keep that concept in our minds, then we make real progress in devotional service, and Krishna will be so kind upon us to reveal deeper and deeper understandings about himself. So taking all that into context, Lord Balaram being the first expansion of the Lord, and being non-different from the Lord, Only difference is in the bodily structure, as Srila Prabhupada says. And then Nityananda. Of course, last night we celebrated the appearance of Lord Balaram. It was very wonderful here in Atlanta, I'm sure. In Harrisburg, he had a wonderful program, I'm sure, in other temples, just beautiful programs to appreciate Lord Balaram. But again, I can't help but realize that I don't quite fully understand the idea of Lord Balaram. I can appreciate, I can hear his glories, but can I claim to understand this person, Balaram, who's the first expansion of Krishna? And from him, other expansions are there, ultimately ending up with Mahavishnu. And from Mahavishnu, universes are coming from the skin holes of his transcendental body, universes coming from his skin holes. So if we really just stop and really think and meditate on these particular points, we become enchanted, not only fascinated, but just totally overwhelmed with a sense of I don't know, just a sense of humility again, just how small we are compared to just these descriptions, because all we really have beyond so-called personal experience or firsthand experience are descriptions. And I use this argument quite often when I'm dealing with, people outside of Krishna consciousness. And I challenge them. I said, all you have are descriptions. Like if you have the Bible or you have the Quran, or if you have the histories of India, the histories of America, it's just descriptions, literature. You choose to accept those literatures to, in some cases, guide your life. Just like in our case, we say Shastra Chakshusha, see through the eyes of Shastra. So everyone's taking some philosophy and choosing to adopt it, implement it, practice it, teach it. So we do the same. We have Bhagavad Gita, we have Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear it. We hear some principles that we can, readily apply, quickly apply in our lives immediately. But some things are beyond our ability to comprehend. So we just appreciate. But just like we choose to accept this philosophy and we hear it with faith and devotion, and other people are doing similarly with their own religion or philosophy. So when we allow this philosophy to touch our hearts and we meditate deeply upon it, and then we implement jnana vijnana, knowledge by practical application, we get knowledge and then we apply it. Then we see all the changes happening in our life in devotional service. And we do it all with faith, love, and devotion, depending on Krishna to reveal to us within the heart the deeper meanings and understandings. So again, Balaram, trying to appreciate him, trying to understand him, is not that easy. And another one of the verses, text 5, Balaram is a swamsha, expansion of the Lord. And therefore, there's no difference in potency between Krishna and Balaram. The only difference is in their bodily structure. Of course, Krishna is blackish and Balaram is whitish. And they wear different color clothing, blue, yellow, like that. But potencies are the same. What is that nice example? One candle, and you light other candles, they have the same potency as the original candle, but there's the original candle. So the word used quite often here is primeval. Primeval means having existed from the beginning in an earliest or original state. So Krishna is the primeval Lord, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone else comes from him. And we living entities were known as vibhinamsas. We have limited manifestation of the energies of the Lord, whereas the swamsas have the same as in the case of Lord Balaram. So we, minute living entities, we have some aspect of the potency of the Lord, but not in complete manifestation. Balaram, on the other hand, has. Of course, we can get into more detail that Krishna has certain qualities that only he himself possesses. But Balaram, it says here, there's no difference in potency between Krishna and Balaram. So this next verse, which is a verse I remember chanting many times in deity worship. Sankarshana Karanatoyo Shai, Garboda Shai Chapayo Dishai, Seshasya Cha, Yashamsha Kala Sa Nitya, Nandakya Rama Sharanam Mamastu. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshana, Shesha, Naga, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, ocean of milk, are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. So Nityananda is more recent compared to Balaram. Nityananda appeared with Lord Chaitanya over 500 years ago. And his appearance is documented by great acharyas, even historically documented. You can study about Nityananda in universities. You can study about Lord Chaitanya in universities. There are scholars who research Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda and the Bhakti cult, as they call it. They're very much aware from a descriptive perspective. They don't really have faith in the essence of what's being described about Nityananda. I mean, that's just way above their pay grade. They can study Nityananda, but then when you come to the point of saying all these expansions by description, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Mahavishnu, all coming from this person who walked on this planet in India over 500 years ago. That person, Nityananda, who's being described here. How can we be so arrogant to think that we fully understand that? Only by the grace of Lord Nityananda, by the grace of Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, can we even begin to appreciate the wonderful characteristics of Lord Nityananda. So from that, I think I'll stop and let's see if we have any additional thoughts or comments. Please feel free to share your thoughts and realizations. Hare Krishna. Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Balabhadra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
So you were mentioning about how, or quoting that the only difference between Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram are the bodily structure that's between them. And then you mentioned about Lord Balaram having a white complexion, Lord Krishna having a shyama complexion, and also the clothing difference. Usually when we think of structure, at least unless I'm mistaken, that structure usually involves some kind of shape difference as well. So I wondered if you'd reflect on that perhaps a little bit. And then in a similar vein, the difference between Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, you were mentioning about the different quality, percentages that different incarnations have. So we know that Lord Krishna, even though the different Vishnu forms have potency like Krishna, but there's four things that only Krishna, the supreme primeval Lord, as you said, has, and that's unparalleled beauty, surrounded by devotees with wonderful love of Godhead, has incredible childhood pastimes, and plays on a flute. So the question, if there's no difference, does Lord Balaram have those four qualities also? So those two aspects of the question. You follow?
Yeah.
Structure and the four qualities.
In terms of the difference in bodily, and you mentioned the word structure, which denotes a certain, like you say, physical structure, more or less. So
or shape of some kind.
Yeah. So whether they're the exact same height, like say I'm 6'1" or you're 6'1", or that kind of thing. Again, it brings me back to what Prabhupada was explaining to this Indian man, that trying to see the Lord by virtue of our own physical situation, trying to comprehend within that understanding based on our body. So spiritual form, spiritual shape, spiritual structure, by definition, being spiritual must be different from our situation here. It's hard to even speak about it. I don't have any particular reference, but only the fact that their color, and even the color of Krishna, Shama, as you said, Shama, and Balaram is a whitish color. But that Shama color is not like something, Prabhupada said it, it's not like the black and white in this world. When we think of a black person, like I'm African American, so-called black skin, and we think, well, Krishna's black, like this? Or is it different? Is that blackness different? Now they have many discussions about blackness and whiteness, major philosophical discussions going on like you cannot believe. Big scholars trying to define blackness and whiteness. But they cannot begin to understand the blackness of Krishna, described as the hue of a new cloud like the monsoon cloud, or like that particular flower. And I looked it up one day because I saw that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had mentioned the name of this particular flower that resembles the color of Krishna. And it's nothing like we think in terms of blackish. So in terms of his structure, his shape, two-handed form in the spiritual world, Krishna Lok, four-handed form in Vaikuntha. Beyond that, I don't know. It's like, the height, the width, the weight. I have no idea on that one. In terms of the four qualities that you mentioned, that Krishna has that no one else has: beauty, unlimited beauty, devotees endowed with pure love of God, childhood pastimes, and playing his flute. Balaram, don't see any pastimes where he's playing his flute. He has his bugle horn. He has his plowshare, bugle horn, things like that. Krishna plays on his flute. He's known for playing on his flute. Balaram is not necessarily known for that, but Krishna is known for that. So in terms of percentages, 64 qualities, as you mentioned, there are 4 distinct qualities that Krishna has that, according to Srila Prabhupada, no one else really has. Balaram has childhood pastimes. Him and Krishna perform together their pastimes. So we can't say that Balaram doesn't have childhood pastimes. Which brings to mind that there's no difference between Balaram and Krishna, other than, as you pointed out, bodily structure or color. So these other 4, I think part of the question might be, at least is coming to my mind, how much of these 4 specific qualities Krishna has does Balaram also have, because he's non-different from Krishna. He has that beauty. He has the love of devotees. He has his childhood pastimes, but he doesn't play the flute. So I'm not sure, because I can't think of a reference now saying that Balaram has those 4 qualities exactly as Krishna has. But just by thinking about it, he has his childhood pastimes, because Krishna and Balaram had their pastimes together, childhood pastimes. And Balaram is surrounded by love. It's like last night we were hearing about Balaram's going to Vrindavan. In fact, I was hearing that pastime early in the morning. Lord Balaram, when he went to Vrindavan and spent time with the devotees there, and they were so happy to see Balaram. And it says they were missing Balaram and Krishna. So when Balaram went back to Vrindavan and spent time, I believe he stayed there 2 months, 3 months, to satisfy the residents of Vrindavan. He spent time talking with the gopis, and it was just amazing. And he has those relationships just like Krishna. So Vishnugadar, to your point, I'm trying to get a little bit of an understanding how much of those 4 qualities are manifest in the pastimes of Lord Balaram. So that's just a little bit of a, discussion on that. If you want to add more to that, please. Vishnugadar, Prabhu?
Yeah. We know that, as you mentioned, that he had his, there's certain cowherd boys that were associated with Lord Balaram, and certain ones that were associated with Lord Krishna. I mean, not that they were exclusively that way, but so in a similar way, later in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll see that there are certain devotees during Chaitanya Lila that were associated with Lord Nityananda, and some were associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu primarily. Yeah. So from that sense, it seems as if, at least on the Sakya level, there's similar a similar relationship. And then also Lord Balaram, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he had a Rasa Lila also.
I was going to say that. Exactly.
So there were gopis, but the commentary is that the gopis with Lord Balaram were different than the
Wow.
gopis with Lord Krishna. So there's a different set of gopis. So that means even that stage of Madhurya Ras was there for Lord Balaram. And I believe even during the Rasa dance, although as you mentioned, Lord Balaram isn't known for playing the flute to attract, the universe, but at that time, I believe he did play the flute
Wow.
for that. So then perhaps as not as frequently or as recognized, but there's a flute playing there. And yeah. So anyway, I didn't have an answer for any of the structural differences. I have no idea. There's only structural difference, which you mentioned the color. Now it's very interesting that you have, especially in the United States, but probably all over the world, there's a wrangling between the white people and the black people.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Krishna and Balaram as our worshipable deities. I mean, not, as you pointed out, it's not really the same white and black, but still.
Yeah.
Still, you can appreciate the difference. So then I had another question.
Sure.
And there's this description of Lord Balaram expands himself, and there's the purport. I think it was purport was he expands himself in 5 forms.
Mm-hmm.
Mahasankarshan, Karanabdhi Shayi, Garbhodhakshayi, Kshirodakshayi, and Shesha. So when I first was thinking about this, I got confused because I'm thinking, well, don't we usually say that Krishna expands himself as Balaram, and then Balaram expands as a quadruple expansion, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And then the Sankarshan and that quadruple expansion expands himself as Narayan. And then Narayan expands as a second quadruple expansion, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And that Sankarshan, that's which I understand is this Mahasankarshan, expands as Mahavishnu. So I'm reading this, this purport on the 5th chapter, verse 10.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, so it seems like the first set of expansions from Balaram are missing. You follow? Whereas Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, where are they? I don't know. So, but he just says these are the ones, these 5. So then I thought, and you can respond or reflect on this. I don't know. I thought, well, that's really not what's being said here. It's this isn't the exhaustive list of expansions of Lord Balaram. This verse is just saying these 5, Lord Balaram expands as these 5 to do the work of creation. Doesn't mean he doesn't expand himself in other ways, like the first quadruple expansion or the second quadruple expansion. Do you follow? Yeah. So that helps me to understand this a little better. I got confused right off the bat with this, but if you take it that way, that these are just those 5 expansions of Lord Balaram that are he expands to facilitate the creation, both of the spiritual and material worlds. Then it makes sense. I mean, it's consistent with other parts. This is not an exhaustive listing of his expansions. It's just those that he expands to do the work of creation. Does that make sense?
No, because you pointed out the obvious, which is missing, which is first quadruple expansion, second quadruple expansion. And then from that, as you said, other expansions are coming. So it's not mentioned here, but it is part of this description about Lord Balaram and his expansions. So yeah, these are 5, but there are 4. First quadruple expansion, second. So the second quadruple expansion expands from Sankarshan, right? From the first quadruple?
The first quadruple expansion has Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Then that Sankarshan expands himself as Narayan. And then Narayan expands at a second quadruple expansion with another Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And then that Sankarshan in the second quadruple expansion expands as Mahavishnu.
Yeah.
That I'm taking as that second Sankarshan is the Mahasankarshan.
Oh, I see.
It expands as Mahavishnu. But that's my take. As you said, without Krishna's mercy, Lord Nityananda's mercy, Lord Balaram's mercy, we're not going to understand anything. I'm just, tinkering a little bit here, trying to understand a little bit, but
But hearing you tinker is very sweet. Just hearing these things is, again, we just have to be satisfied on one level, just being able to hear or even to talk about these things. I mean, who are we to talk about these exalted topics? Well, we're simply trying to follow Srila Prabhupada. As long as we remain at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, very carefully stay at his lotus feet, don't jump too far this way, that way, trying to understand what he explained. The problem I see sometimes, devotees try to explain things that Prabhupada didn't even explain, that he didn't talk about. And then they try to explain that. And I get a little nervous when that happens. But if you're trying to explain what Srila Prabhupada said, even though our understanding may not be perfect, but at least we're trying to discuss from what we've read from Srila Prabhupada. That is amazing. We should be proud of all of us for being able to do that consistently, just trying to explain, understand what Prabhupada says. And what I mean by that for myself is, after these many years, I'm going back through the books again. I was talking to Vishnu Prabhu the other day. My name is Balabhadra Bhattacharya Das, given to me by Srila Prabhupada. And I've read Chaitanya Charitamrita numerous times, and especially in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya with Balabhadra Bhattacharya serving him. But I never noticed that there are prayers given by Balabhadra Bhattacharya. I was like, what? I never even noticed it. I've read it, but this somehow or another, the other day, I'm listening to Amala Bhakta Maharaj reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, that particular pastime, and on about Balabhadra Bhattacharya. And then Balabhadra Bhattacharya offers prayers to Lord Chaitanya, about 3 different prayers. Because Lord Chaitanya says to him, without you, I would not have been able to relish or do these things without you, Balabhadra Bhattacharya. And Balabhadra Bhattacharya is responding by saying, I am insignificant. I'm thinking, wow. So think about that. How blessed we are to be able to hear these things, to appreciate them, discuss them back and forth. Our association is meant for discussing Krishna's pastimes. So what is that verse? Vishnu, maybe you can help me. Matchita matgata prana bodhyantas parasparam. You know that verse?
Katayantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. Yeah.
They relish here, discussing these things amongst each other, devotees relish. So this nice little group, this nice little class and other classes and other coming together is meant to try to understand what Prabhupada gave us, first and foremost. If you want the real nectar, the real relish in these conversations, should be based on what we heard from Srila Prabhupada. And sometimes Prabhupada would mention another scripture, mention even Niti Shastra from Chanakya Pandit, different things he would mention. But we just always bring it back in context that this is what Prabhupada gave us. We have the authority to discuss them. As Vishnu Gadal said, he had some realizations, some thoughts. We have the authority given to us by Srila Prabhupada to discuss these things together. And in that discussing together, Tushantecha, Ramantecha, we begin to relish these wonderful things, even though we don't understand them completely. So thank you, Vishnu Gadal Prabhu.
And following up on that, yesterday was Lord, as you know, you mentioned Lord Balaram's appearance day, and reading the pastime of Lord Balaram threatening the residents of Hastinapur after Samba kidnapped the daughter of Duryodhan to become his wife. So the Kurus, they insulted the Yadus, and so Lord Balaram was planning to take his plow and drag the Hastinapur into the river of either the Ganges or Jamuna.
Yeah.
So then at that point, the residents of Hastinapur they pray to Lord Balaram. There's a series of 4 or 5 prayers that, we're foolish, So sometimes during Lord Balaram's appearance, devotees, they recite different prayers to Lord Balaram. Like sometimes people there's prayers of Duryodhan to Lord Balaram. Did you know that?
Didn't think about
Yeah,
it.
there's a whole, from one Purana or another. But I was thinking, I mean, we didn't get that from Srila Prabhupada, and I don't know how effective the Duryodhan prayers are, 'cause, but the prayers here to Lord Balaram, very nice in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very interesting stuff that we could recite on Lord Balaram's appearance day,
That's so important what you're saying, Vishnu Prabhu, and I hope everyone's hearing it. Like on Shivaratri, devotees have now started doing different things on Shivaratri, and even some places Shiva Linga bathing and all that kind of thing. I just remember whenever Shivaratri came around, the appearance of Shiva, I just go to the Bhagavatam. And I realized one time in doing that, there's major passages in the Bhagavatam about Lord Shiva. Why would I go outside of the Bhagavatam to discuss Lord Shiva or anything? Bhagavatam has it, Bhagavad Gita has it, Chaitanya Charitamrita has it, and then we're safe if we're speaking from what Prabhupada said. Even if Prabhupada mentions another scripture, we're safe. But when we venture out from that and we bring in other references, other scriptures, other acharyas, like you said, other prayers, we have to be very, very careful. There are unlimited prayers. Actually, Prabhupada was speaking with George Harrison, John Lennon, and Yoko Ono, and this is recorded, you can hear it. And he tells them, there's so many prayers, and he starts singing. He gives a private concert to George Harrison, Yoko Ono, and John Lennon, chanting these different prayers. He's telling them, you can take these prayers, you can sing them. So all we have to do is note down which prayers did Prabhupada sing. Wow, let me sing those prayers. We have a book full of prayers that are authorized by the acharyas. Why should we venture out? Our whole life can just be what Prabhupada gave us, if we choose. But if we choose to go outside of that without guidance of a more experienced devotee, it could be, I don't want to say detrimental. It could affect our progress negatively, slow down our progress. So the safest position, Prabhupada's books, read them, study them scrutinizingly. It'll take your whole life. I'm listening to a series of Prabhupada's lectures from the second canto, and I forget exactly the verse, but he's given at least 20 lectures on this verse. What is that verse? Savai pumsam paro dharmo, yato bhaktir hokaje. I hike to forget the Sanskrit, but dharma. I'd like to say it. Can you say it?
Ahitukiya pratyata yenatma suprasidati.
Yeah, yenatma suprasidati. So for the self to be satisfied. Okay, so that verse he's speaking on, still there are more. There's like 20 or so that he's already given on that same verse. Hyderabad, Vrindavan, Germany, this place, the same verse over and over and over and over and over. And every time I hear it, it's like amazing. More little realizations come. So we really don't have time in this lifetime to go too far outside of what Prabhupada's given us. If we seriously just take the time to study, as he said, scrutinizingly, everything Prabhupada gave us, that's enough. That's enough. So back to you, Parikshit Prabhu.
Thank you very much for bringing this point out. One time, although I won't mention the name of the devotee, mentioned privately to you later, but there was a devotee I literally had an argument with about this point. And I just told him, I'm for Papa all the way. And that's when he got upset with me. He got upset with me because he had mentioned other people, and what they had talked about. And when I was listening, some of the things didn't quite deal with what Srila Prabhupada had said. Mm-hmm. And so, and he was talking to a fairly young, in terms of Krishna consciousness, number of years they've been there, audience. Mm. So I went to his house. I was talking privately about this. This is, they are bhaktas trying to understand. And so if you just expand things like that, thinking that they're going to think that anybody that they know, their ideas can be added also into the discussion. And I just wanted to remind him that Srila Prabhupada is the one that's teaching us. And Srila Prabhupada is not Srila Prabhupada purport only. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur purpose. Bhakti Siddhanta said, on and on and on. Even to Chanakya Pandit as it is necessary to make a point.
Yeah.
So, I just, he wanted to go out to other authors or other, people who are describing things. That's up to him. But we're making the point that, if you're talking to people who are bhaktas, don't make them think in terms of other people are saying, no. We want them to be interested in this kind, and this kind of Srila Prabhupada. So we had that. But it ended well though. We're still very good friends. So, but he got a little hot there for a moment that I brought it up. Srila Prabhupada is no, I don't have to repeat. You've already said it, It's all Prabhupada. You be safe. It's all Prabhupada. Sometimes I remind people, who gave you the right to chant 16 rounds and go back to the spiritual world? I thought Vaishnava was supposed to chant 64 rounds. So if you got that kind of mercy, where else you want to go?
Yeah.
You're doing 1/4 here. You have to get back to the spiritual world. So the mercy is this is how powerful Srila Prabhupada and how merciful he is. You stay with him is the safest thing to do. Just like he said, Hare Krishna.
Well, it's very interesting that this term infallible or infallibility is being applied to Srila Prabhupada in some discussions online, trying to ascertain or saying we should not say that Prabhupada was infallible because we're all fallible in this world. And I'm thinking, how could you even have such a discussion like that? It's just impossible for me to even think in terms of that with Srila Prabhupada, when in fact, Prabhupada himself says in the beginning of the Bhagavatam that this presentation is not my mother tongue. There'll be many mistakes. He's even saying that about himself to some degree. He's letting us know up front that this is not my language, this is not my culture, but it will be accepted by persons as an attempt to glorify the Almighty God. So I'm thinking, devotees, come on. Prabhupada gave his life to glorify the Almighty Lord in a way that we could understand, which is what he prayed for when he came to America. My dear Lord, make my words suitable for their understanding. He prayed for us to be able to understand. But we think we understand now. We're so, at least myself, we're so proud that I understand. No, Prabhupada prayed for me to understand. He prayed for me to have the ability to understand. I was telling Jackie the other day, growing up in the hood or the ghetto or whatever you want to call it, back in the 50s and 60s. And I thought, when I took initiation from Srila Prabhupada in Chicago, 1974, sitting there looking at his face, thinking that he could see through me all my past nonsense. And then I had this realization that whether Prabhupada is lying to me or lying to us or trying to manipulate us, I said, why would he do that? Why would he, at the age of 69, 70, come to America, go through all his hardships to find a fool like me and lie to me to get my commitment? It makes no sense. So I concluded that no, he didn't lie. Everything he said is genuinely Krishna conscious, and I should humbly hang on to every word and try to scrutinize it, try to understand it, try to apply it. As you said, Preksha, I'm all in with Prabhupada. I tell people all the time, I'm not that Krishna conscious, but you cannot, and I say it with transcendental pride, you can't drag me away from Prabhupada. You can't do it. I mean, I can fail in many other ways, but you cannot take my faith in him because it's born of years of practicing following him the best that I can. And I've seen through that practice, he didn't lie to me. He didn't lie to us. He told us the truth. Now I just have to try to understand that truth. And if I can't understand it, just hear it, just appreciate it, relish it transcendentally. So anyway, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anyone else has any comments? We're at the top of the hour now, but any last comments or last questions or realizations anyone likes to share?
Vishnu
Good
Gadad.
afternoon. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry to drag us out, but yesterday we were reading about Lord Balaram's appearance. So since that's also the subject of our discussion today, there was one verse that I had a little trouble. This is on describing, and from the Srimad Bhagavatam, describing Lord Balaram, his appearance prior, before, when he was in the womb of
Yeah.
Mother Devaki. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verses 4 and 5. Some of the relatives, however, we're talking about the Yadu relatives, began to follow Kamsa's principles and act in his service. After Kamsa, the son of Ugrasen, killed the 6 sons of Devaki, a plenary portion of Krishna entered the womb as her 7th child, arousing her pleasure and her lamentation. That plenary portion is celebrated by great sages as Ananta, who belongs to Krishna's 2nd quadruple expansion. All right. I don't get that.
I'd have to go back and look at that 100 times to try to get a little appreciation.
All right.
But
Yeah,
it's
I did.
beautiful to hear.
That's 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 4th and 5th verse. Anyway, because we were talking about Lord Balaram being the 1st expansion, and I mean, if you go to from that, you get the Sankashan in the 1st chapter view, but here it says it's the 2nd chapter view. So anyway, that's a little tricky.
I'll go back and look at that. That's interesting. It's beautiful, though. It's absolutely beautiful.
And then, one of the pastimes of Lord Balaram that is elaborated on in the Srimad Bhagavatam is the story of Romaharshan Sutta, where Lord Balaram enters an assembly of sages in Naimisharanya, and Romaharshan Sutta is sitting on the elevated seat, and all the sages stand up to welcome Lord Balaram, but Romaharshan doesn't. Even though he's a disciple of Vyasadeva, and is given all these different kinds of blessings by the Brahmin sages there, Lord Balaram takes a piece of kusha grass and assassinates Romaharshan Sutta, which says quite a bit. Anyway, and the thing is, because he was overly proud, sitting on an elevated seat, even when Lord Balaram comes there, right? Even Lord Balaram comes there.
Yeah.
So I know that during the time of Srila Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was personally, physically manifest with us, during the Srimad Bhagavatam class and other classes, nobody sat on an elevated seat.
Correct.
But now everybody sits on the elevated seat. What do you make of that?
Well, I just have had this discussion in the last couple of days with GBC for that area, Anutama Prabhu, because I posted something on Facebook about that, and you're absolutely correct. The fact that during Prabhupada's physical presence, and here's a point that comes in my mind, during his physical presence, we sat on the floor, on a straw mat, or a very nice little cushion, not a big cushion, just a small little cushion on the floor. So now Prabhupada is not here, but he's on that Vyasa. So my question became, wait a minute, is that Prabhupada sitting there? Or is that a statue? What is that form that we keep in the temple room? Because you can think, well, Prabhupada's no longer physically here. Now we can sit on a higher seat, which we never did during the time that Prabhupada was physically present on this planet. Never. And devotees actually sometimes spoke in front of Srila Prabhupada. He would ask them to speak. Where did they sit? Did he offer them a higher seat to speak? They just spoke. Wherever they were sitting, they would speak or stand up and speak. So wherein lies the justification for an increase in that respectable seat? What does it mean, respectable seat? I have a hard time even visualizing what did those devotees sit in, like Naimisharanya? Did somebody construct a big seat from what? What did they construct it from? And what did it look like? I know it's depicted sometimes in paintings. So when I was discussing this with Anuttama Prabhu, he remembered the same thing. Because my point was, is that seat a Vyasa-san, or is it something else? Seat that we sit on when we give class. What is that? Because I hear over and over devotees referring to it as a Vyasa-san. My humble understanding is that there's only one Vyasa-san allowed in ISKCON temples. That's the one that Prabhupada's sitting on. So how can we justify calling the other seat a Vyasa-san, and based on that, increasing its grandeur, its style, its whatever. So I personally don't quite understand it. Not to say it's right or wrong. I just don't quite understand it. And I'm seeking understanding, still trying to get it. But I do not address that seat as Vyasa-san. I say this from my own humble understanding. I'm representing Srila Prabhupada, but I've heard devotees say, no, we represent the Acharyas. Of course, that's implicit in representing Prabhupada. But my understanding for me, this is what keeps me humble. I'm sitting there representing Srila Prabhupada, trying to explain whatever I've heard from him, which he explains from the Acharyas. I wrote down one other point. I said that Prabhupada has done the research. As I think Parikshit pointed out, different acharyas are mentioned in the different purports. He's done the research. He's much more qualified than any of us to do the research. So whatever he's given us is from his research, studying the acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti, his own spiritual master, the Goswamis. That's good enough, at least for me. So that seat, for me, I'm representing Srila Prabhupada. I'm not saying everyone has to see the same way, but that's just my understanding. And why has it become, in some cases, so elaborate? I don't know. I don't know when that started. It was not there during the time of Srila Prabhupada. So 100% I agree with you on that, Vishnu Gadapuru. I don't know if anyone else has a comment. I know it's a little sometimes controversial, but if anyone has a comment on that or any thoughts.
I'll say in one sentence, well, maybe it should just be called Assam. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that is. Go ahead.
Assam.
Yeah.
Assam.
Or speakers are assigned, anything, but Vyasa-san, then you get into the whole thing. No one should sit on the Vyasa-san if he's not free from this and free. Whoa, I'm not free from that. So I'm just sitting on, as you said, an asan, a seat. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah, in our times too, in getting angry, we were also sitting on the floor on the cushion to give class at that time. Yeah.
It's very nice on the floor. I like the floor. It's very comfortable.
Anyway, yeah, maybe our son will just.
It's very grounding.
Oh well. Oh well. Hare Krishna. Any other comments before we close? If not, then thank you very much for coming to hear this class. It's a very, very instructive about Sri Balaram, and it's also right after Balaram Jayanti we had this class. This is very wonderful to explain, understand more about the Lord, and also admit that, as you said, the parts of it that are above our pay grade, and the parts of it, by the mercy of the Lord, we can to kind of discuss some more about it. So it's fairly the beginning still of the week. So the rest of the week have wonderful, wonderful Krishna conscious realizations and Krishna conscious activities too. Vanchaka Patru Vishya Kripas Nivetitano Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo
Tanam Pavnebhyo
Vaishnavibhyo Prabhupada ki
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.